What is going on, guys? Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I know this is delayed a little bit. Just checking. I think we're good. Because 2 Fridays ago, I tried to record this. It might have even been last Friday. And it got pretty crazy. Nonetheless, welcome to week 4 of the Underdog experiment, where we are doing a recap on finances this week. And ultimately, this is kind of the closure to the Underdog experiment. One thing to remember is that I will actually have a premiere this Sunday, kind of giving a summary of this whole Underdog experiment and essentially just recapping everything, right? So look for that Sunday. Again, we'll talk about it later. But ultimately, week 4, we are on finances. And this recap is going to be a little bit different because it is the last live for this Underdog experiment. I do want you guys to know that the whole premise of this Underdog experiment was to take advantage of the 10% of your day, right? The 10% of your day in which the conscious side of your brain is actually allowing input and allowing yourself to change your patterns, right? To change your routine. And we have to understand that during this 10% of the day that the conscious side is actually being active and having input, this is where you want the positive things to come to your life, right? This is where you want the new perspectives to come in, especially if you are in an environment that is negative, right? If you're in a negative environment, it is important to try to take advantage of that 10% and make sure you get as much positivity into that 10% of that day than you normally would, right? Again, especially if you are in a negative environment, because it matters. It truly matters that 10% you take advantage of it. And the other 90% is essentially running on autopilot, right? Now, you may have heard this, that, we use only 10% of our brain, which is proven to be false, right? The 10% I'm talking about is the conscious side. I'm not talking about the whole brain. You use your whole brain. It's always active. There's plenty of science out there to prove that, right? They're just doing a bunch of other processes essentially in the background is what your brain is doing. So again, we are trying to take advantage of that 10% of your day. And that's why I started this Underdog experiment, was to do that, to give you perspective, to attack everything that we're going over in these 4 weeks with a mindset that needs to change, right? Because ultimately, a big reason, again, why I started this was because a lot of people, struggle in life like I did. They struggle to make an impact on their life, to change their life to where they want to see it, right? And to be able to do that, you have to start with a mindset. It all starts with a mindset. And that's essentially what the premise of my channel is trying to change your mindset into seeing things differently. If you can do that, you realize that you can be these things that you want to be. You can change your life dramatically. Those things that you thought you couldn't do, you can do. And so, but it starts with a mindset. It starts with what you tell yourself in that 10% of the day. If you can change all those things in that 10% every single day, be conscious of that 10% and trying to make an effort to make positive impact into your world, you realize that the other 90% slowly, you start taking over that 90% that perhaps is negative. You start incorporating these things and you realize that your life gets better. You're a more positive person because of it, right? You take advantage of that 10%, and then the autopilot is running on these other different perspectives, right? And there's this thing called the frequency bias, which is essentially, when you see, you've always wanted that car. You wanted that car, and then what you end up doing is you buy that car. You don't see this car anywhere else, right? And then you're in love with this car. You buy the car, and you're like, wait, hold on a second. Everybody else has the same exact car. Why did I not see it before? And this is called the frequency bias, right? It's understanding that your brain recognizes patterns. But if you are not conscious of these patterns, you will not see them. And so this is what's extremely important, and why I'm trying to, again, tie all this into the Underdog experiment is because of the fact that you have to make a conscious effort, right? You have to be self-aware of those thoughts that are going through your head, eliminating those bad thoughts, right? And incorporating the good thoughts, taking advantage again of that 10%, and incorporating this frequency bias, right? Looking for the patterns of positivity. You again realize that 90% starts understanding it, right? Because you've been feeding it positive thoughts, positive ideas. And then again, sorry for that interruption. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but nonetheless, taking advantage of that 10%, right? And doing that by using this frequency bias. And if you could do this, you realize that a lot of, okay, I think that should be good. Okay, so you realize that a lot of options, sorry, I'm really not sure if you guys can hear that or not. But anyway, so continuing on this frequency bias, right? You're looking for patterns. And when you realize that when you start looking for these patterns, you start seeing opportunities that were right in front of your eyes that weren't typically there, right? I talk about this on my channel, is that abundance mindset, right? A lot of times we are in a mindset that we think we are lacking, right? And to get out of that mindset, sometimes you need a perspective shift, right? Frequency biased to realize, hey, look, there's more opportunity here than I actually thought there was, right? And so that's essentially what is what I'm bringing into this whole Underdog experiment, is to try to open your eyes on these patterns, right? Because your brain loves patterns. And when you pick up on the patterns, when you're aware of the patterns and start allowing that to be something more frequent, more aware in your life, you start picking up on these other options. You don't feel so limited and constrained, right? You realize that there's more out there. So you're willing to go out there and put yourself out there. You're not fearful anymore, right? You're willing to go out and take advantage of these things and get new perspectives and learn new things because of this frequency bias, right? You're seeing the new options that were always there before, but you just weren't conscious of it. So remember that. And I know that was kind of brief and long-winded, but that is why I started this Underdog experiment, because I wanted people to not struggle in life as I once did, right? I want you to essentially take your power back, right? And to be confident and to not be fearful of going out and trying new things and going against the grain, right? And again, it's all perspective, right? You get new perspective, you realize that there's other opportunities there that you perhaps did not see before. So with all that being said, that was a lot being said. That was a good starter, a good 10-minute warm-up, right? So that's why I started the Underdog experiment. And further down, I got some other stuff on the Underdog experiment I want to go over. So again, as we get started, please like the video, give it an early like, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and share it with other people out there so we can get this live stream up and going. I will be continuing this live stream, so this is not the only time we'll be doing live stream. I do have other plans, but again, I'll save that for the premiere on Sunday, so don't miss that either. Nonetheless, relevant books for this week on finance. Again, you'll find those down in the description. Those are all the books I have personally read on finance. Again, they're more perspective, and I know a lot of people want books on do step 1 through 3. Again, realize you are unique. Not everything is, things are based off of your experience, right? This is how we build, how we learn things, is the fact that you're building off your own experiences. So it can give you a blueprint that says do steps 1 through 10, but you realize that step 4, it's not working. Why is it not working? It says step 4, do this, and it's not working, right? So you have to realize that information has to be general. You have to take that information, apply it, which is important, apply it in the field, and realize that when you're doing this and applying it, that you're going to have to tweak it. You're going to tweak it to where it works for you. And it's not going to work the same for everybody. And that's what's important. So with that being said, again, relevant books are down there. Some great reads in there. I went over those on Monday. So if you did miss the Monday live stream, check out those books. I also have my top 5, which I have a new book that if I could talk, I cracked the top 5 last week, and that was The Introvert's Edge to Networking. That is also listed in the top 5 also as well. I do have, and by all means, I know I have 2 viewers, so if you got any questions, you can stop me and ask questions. Please don't let me just rant. I am feeling the rant tonight, so just let it come if you want, if you want to ask questions at any moment. But also, I started a new book as well this week. It's Jim Quick. I don't know. He's a brain coach. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of him. He's one of the premier brain coaches, and he has a new book out that I'm reading. That is definitely like either going to be my top 1 or 2. Again, because this channel, I'm really going to be focusing on a mindset and hammering away how you can fix a mindset so you're not held back by things, right? Because that's, again, the root. I'm all about the root and not quick fixing things, because quick fixes, don't last. The temporary satisfaction doesn't work, right? You have to aim for the root, fix it at the root, go from there, and take back your power, right? And that's ultimately what it's about. So, all that being said, no comments. I know we're delayed. We're 11 minutes in. I think we're still rolling good here. Let's see. I hit all those. Bam, 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 bam. So this week, finances, right? I have, since last week, we talked about people skills. And people skills, during people skills, I did networking a lot during that week. Again, I've been carrying over my goals from the previous weeks. And so this week, I started networking. I've been hanging out YouTube creators, trying to do some networking and stuff like that to get some more insights. One of the places I actually go to for information that I've been hanging out is Pat Flynn. If you guys don't know who that is, if you guys are familiar at all with YouTube, he does a lot of things with making money online. That's not exactly how to put it, but that's how I'm phrasing it right now, because I'm a loss of words right now. But Pat Flynn, he does podcasting. He does all these things. Passive Income Podcast, I think is the name of his podcast. But I've been attending his live events, and they have some great information on there. Again, I was looking for other revenue services, other aspects of revenue for a business, right? Because that falls into finance. Again, if you miss anything on business, you're kind of wondering where I'm going with all this stuff, you can always check back on Monday Live to kind of pick up where I left off from there. But he did talk about some great things. Book number 1, which is my goal this week, was to start writing a book to essentially produce some revenue. Although I learned today, matter of fact, was it today? And it was the yesterday live event. They talked about a book not really being a source of revenue, right? Think of a book, right? If you're starting a business, to think of a book as your business card, right? And that don't worry about the revenue, but more so as what it can bring in for you, right? And that's ultimately what it is bringing in clients, right? Because that's ultimately what it's about. He did go, I have like 6 things listed here. He talked about courses, affiliates, coaching, which is something I've talked about in this channel briefly, or I've put down in the description. I might actually start doing some coaching on here. If you guys are interested in that, leave a message down below. The more people that are interested in that, I'll actually start doing some coaching. It'll be limited slots. It won't be something that I'm going to just randomly schedule. There will be just a few slots, probably a month. We'll see how that goes. If it gets like stacked up, then I might actually change it and add some more slots in there. But I talked about coaching, talks about subscription-based program, subscription service. So we talked about that as well. That's something I've also considered doing here, although that would be probably further down the road. Nonetheless, talked about live events too. Ultimately, what I like to do is see this, right? This system, taking this Underdog experiment, winning the 10%, creating a system to help you essentially transform your mindset, right? There's a lot of times, I know, kind of pinging back to this whole 10% thing, but it's going to create a system in which you feel you're lost or struggling, right? Life events will bring points in your life where you'll feel lost or struggling, and it's trying to take advantage of that 10%. Again, I will leave it in Monday or further along points in this video, in this live. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but so that's what I don't want to get too off topic with the finances, right? I want to try to keep it up, close it out, and then I got a whole shebang at the back end of this half. So since this is the last live, I might actually go a full hour. It's only been 15 minutes, but nonetheless. So that's what I did with the networking, the revenue streams. It was one of the things I hit on. Again, I talked about doing a book, which I did start. I've been actually writing a book. I did want to actually pop this up here real quick. It's good to change the visuals here a little bit, right? So pop this up. So this is my table of contents that I started this week. I started on, I don't know what day is it, Friday? I started Wednesday. I think I started Wednesday or Tuesday. I don't know. It was Tuesday or Wednesday. Just go with that. I've been doing every day though. I've been writing, right? So I didn't just write the table of contents. Yes, the first day I did write it. It's easier to break it down and kind of go from there, right? So there are going to be some things that are different in here, but as going through this Underdog experiment, what I did notice was, there's some missing pieces, right? And which I probably should have gone over more during this Underdog experiment that help, right? Because there's, you hit on some points, you find some new things. A lot of times with these recap videos and stuff, and you're like, well, if I added this piece that I'm already aware of, it could really help someone out. So I'm trying to it's really just slapping it all against the wall, organizing it, and then get a little bit more in the details, right? Getting in the weeds. So far, this is what I got, the table of contents. Again, this is just an extreme raw, rough draft, right? So intro, I just kind of break down what this whole Underdog experiment is, your architecture, essentially your blueprint, right? And the way in which we learn. Focus here is essentially something I added today that I don't know why I even had focus here. I was thinking focus, but the purpose of the focus was more for your being self-aware, right? You need to focus on being self-aware and how that's going to help you, right? If you really want to change your life. Now, this can be a whole other rant, and again, why I'm going to continue doing these lives, because I believe it's extremely important, is if you want to change your life, you have to realize that no one is going to save you, right? Like you have to be your own cheerleader. You have to be your own hype man. You have to believe in yourself. You have to make the decisions, be responsible for your decisions, because you have to realize that your decisions have essentially put you to where you are today, right? But you have to be responsible for those decisions. If you don't take responsibility for your decisions, your life will never change, right? Like there is no way, no one will save you from where you're at. You have to realize that. And it's a hard lesson I have learned, right? No one will save you, right? Luck isn't there for those people that essentially who aren't prepared, right? You can find luck and then realize that, hey, I failed, right? You can take that personal, but you have to realize that this is why I do a lot of preparation in the stuff I do, because it helps, right? When you meet luck, you got a better chance of capitalizing on that luck, right? You have to realize you have to take it upon yourself and, again, be responsible for the decisions that you make, because every decision that you've made to this point has put you exactly where you need to be, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind, and this is why I'm finding this Underdog experiment. This whole Underdog experiment was a, ready, shoot, aim kind of thing, which I believe everybody should be doing, right? If you're trying to prepare for everything, yes, preparation is key, but you have to execute on things way, way before, right? Just execute. You'll figure out the details later. Just do it. Because if you don't, you realize that you'll be stuck in the same place you were, your whole life, and you're wondering why you don't get out of the situations that you are. Because it's that term called insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and over and over, expecting a different result, and it's not going to happen. So with that being said, total rant there, but focus, right? So again, you got to be self-aware of the self-talk. You got to be self-aware of the internal dialogue, and focus on self-awareness, right? So that's essentially what the focus is on there. Again, this is all working. This could change when this actually comes out and everything. It might change a little bit. It'll be shifted around. As you know, there's got to be a couple of iterations before this actually gets finalized, right? But nonetheless, so that's what focus is. Challenging beliefs is something I've talked about on this channel. I actually believe I talked about it last Friday, because I believe that is something that is really important. Is you really have to look at the belief system that you're holding right now, and understand if it is serving you. Because a lot of times we are conditioned into certain beliefs, and then we realize that it conflicts with some of the things that we are currently going through, and understanding that it doesn't really benefit you anymore, right? The return on investment isn't there anymore. So you have to challenge beliefs. You have to audit your beliefs and challenge them. And so that's essentially what the challenge your beliefs is. And then the winning the 10% is obviously what the whole Underdog experiment is about. So that will probably be more in detail of winning the 10% and how to take advantage of that. Being efficient is time management. And if you guys have been following at all this Underdog experiment, you know I've had 4 pillars. Now it's down to 3. I've moved time management because I talked about this in week 1 and week 2. The efficiency, I think, should be more into the root of things, right? It should be that whole internal thing where you're trying to figure out how to manage your time. I think it's more rooted there as opposed to being a pillar. Just because it's one of those things, you only need to do it a little bit to understand time management and blocking your time, audit your time, understand where it's going, not wasting time, right? Now, a lot of people, again, just to touch on this, a lot of people would think that, hey, I don't want to be one of those people that just works all the time. Hey, you know what? I work all the time. I do. I have a regular job. I do this. I exercise. I do all these other different things. But you have to realize that if you're doing something you enjoy doing, which at one point you can get to a point to where you do enjoy doing this stuff, right? Because it's serving your purpose. And when you have your purpose, you have your motivation, you have all these things. And so you realize that all this stuff that you're doing doesn't feel like work. You're enjoying what you're doing, right? And so, again, little tangent there, be efficient. Unseen progress, we've talked about this throughout this whole Underdog experiment. And essentially why we have the running log on the pinned comment is because you're trying to capture the progress that you are not seeing. And when we don't see progress, we get frustrated, we get upset with ourselves that we're doing something wrong, we're not doing it the right way, but when in fact you are. And to understand that a lot of information that's out there is correct information, again, depending on what it is, but majority of it is primarily correct information. It's just sticking with it, the daily tasks, right? There's nothing fancy about it. It's simple system. Stick with the simple system. Continue to execute every single day. Consistency is what counts. So that's what the unseen progress is. Then I go into the pillars, building body and mind. That is a great one to understand that body and mind aren't different. I'm still kind of trying to figure out how to structure that. But again, I kind of want to keep it all mindset related. I don't want to get into the details here. This is a meal plan. I'm not trying to do all that. I'm trying to keep it mindset related on all this stuff because that's what I'm trying to build this channel strictly on, is mindset and changing your mindset about your body and mind, and realize that there is a very close connection. And if you know anything about fitness as of late and health, gut bio, right? Even in the Jim Quick book I was listening today, which is a page turner, gut bio, right? It is the feel that in which I've talked about this before, but the input essentially that you're putting into your body affects your mind, right? It doesn't just affects your mood, affects your mind, it affects all these other different things. So you may wonder why you feel you feel that drowsiness, right? And you feel all these other different things, maybe body aches and all these other different things. Well, essentially more mood, right? Because we're trying to stick with the mind here. Your gut bio affects all that stuff, right? That's like jet fuel. What you put in your stomach and that gut bio affects the way you're thinking. So you need to put that in context, right? A lot of people want to separate, this is your body, this is your mind, right? You have to understand, if you have at all gotten into a place of some kind of consistent fitness, right? You realize that they are directly correlated with each other and that they do affect each other a lot. So if you're not going out and getting some form of physical, doing a walk or doing something physically every day, you're going to realize it's going to affect your mind, right? If you realize that the input you're doing in this 10%, right? If you're not injecting positive thoughts into your mind, right, you can literally make yourself sick. You can stress yourself out, right? And that affects your body. They're all correlated. So that's what that is essentially about. The road to building wealth. I've been kind of debating about this one, finances, like this week, is because I just want to shift mindset on finances. And I believe, again, these three pillars, the health, wealth, and soft skills are important, right? They're important for anything, especially when setting a mindset. Again, the primary contents of this book would be aimed to discovering these things, right? Discover possibilities, ignite change. That's what this channel is about, right? And so it's essentially trying to discover the new thoughts and ideas around money, changing your relationship with money, because no one is taught these things, right? And switching that and looking at the possibilities and, again, teaching you how to interpret this stuff, right? Again, looking for the frequency bias, right? Like, what is different here, right? Look at what everybody is doing, right? And this is, again, where, sorry about that if I smack the mic, but look at what everybody's doing, right? Are you sitting there and doing some critical thinking? I have talked about critical thinking a little bit. Critical thinking is important because a lot of times we don't do it anymore, right? Like, that is a major issue that we have now, right? And again, this is also why I've been doing the stillness, right? Is to have that thought process, right? That's extremely important. Critical thinking on your own, right? Especially with all the junk on the media, with all the junk everywhere you see, every media outlet, right? You need to shut that off sometimes and just think for yourself, right? What do you believe in? And this goes back to all this kind of just ties in together. All these things tie in together, right? So I'm trying to show you guys how all these dots, they connect, right? And so you have to realize that all this stuff, again, ties in together. Now I lost my train of thought when tying everything together, but nonetheless, so Road to Wealth is just trying to give you thoughts and ideas on that, right? And understand that, again, you shouldn't follow the herd. You should think for yourself, and go from there, right? And so that's essentially what that's for. And then again, not your average soft skills. It's based on a lot of the soft skills I've been talking about over the past last week. Yeah, that's where we're at. Last week we talked about soft skills, which I, again, believe a lot of people don't have soft skills. It's one of those things where you, again, got to go out to the field and apply them. You learn about them, change your perspective of them. And again, that's why I'm trying to set this book up, because I really want to provide a resource for you guys. It's like a manual, right, that you can flip it open and kind of read through it. I'm trying to cut out fluff and just put it to a point to where you're getting the knowledge that you need and applying it, right? Having a resource ultimately helps. So, again, with that being said, soft skills, going over that, right? Like, you need to know about the smiling, the eye contact, and body language, which when people talk about people skills, they tend to forget body language, which I think is extremely important. And being able to read body language, which I think is ultimately important too. So that's, again, some things to keep in mind. With that being said, so that's, and then the last one there is just the beginning. That's just to know that personal development doesn't stop, right? And as daunting as that may sound, you have to realize, like, a good example is if you want to be in shape, right? If you want to gain muscle, you want to do these different things, you can't just stop at the gym after a month, right? Because you're going to start losing your gains. It's the same with your mindset. It's the same with anything that you want to make progress in. You got to maintain it, right? And it's, all these things are a barrier to entry, right? If you want to make change, you can make change. How are you talking to yourself? Are you telling yourself you can't do it? Because if you're telling yourself you can't do it, you can't do it, right? If you're telling yourself, I am a warrior, I am going to go do these things, I am going to take charge of my life, I'm going to change my life, and I'm not going to take it anymore today, right? And I think that's something a lot of people really need to sink in, right? Is to, let me expand this. Go ahead and close this out, because I think we're pretty much done with that one. Video capture the book. Okay, that's good. So yeah, that's pretty much the book. But is to allow people to, which the book, I'll keep you guys updated on that and stuff. So don't worry about that. Again, continuing the live streams. I'll get more into that on Sunday. Nonetheless, I want to continue with this thought process. I think I just lost it, but nonetheless, it's just, you have to understand, again, all these things, they take continuous effort, but they're not as daunting as you think they are. They become a process. Like I said, when you take advantage of that 10%, you're essentially registering it to that 90% that's automatic routine, right? So you're setting the automatic switch on, and then it starts processing good vibes, starts processing new thought patterns, right? That's what you're trying to change. You change all that, you realize that you start, again, seeing opportunity that was right in front of your face the whole time. And that's what's important. That's what I'm trying to do here with this, and help you guys understand, because I've been there, and it saddens me to see people struggle with this, right? And so that's why I'm trying to create a system, a simple system in which you have to be aware that is going to be work. This isn't an overnight process, but realize you need to be winning that 10% every day. Your goal every day should be to win that 10%. Inject positivity in your life in that 10% of the day, and realize that it can get better. You can change your life. You don't have to put up with what was given to you, right? Second breath, second wind. Only 30 minutes in. All right, cool. All right, so that's essentially my goal. I was working on that book. Again, it's not really primarily for revenue. It's to more get my name out there for that, in the reference to that, right? So that, and then the revenue services. So this week in itself, I think, was a solid week, again, because I continued on my networking from last week. It carried in and allowed me to find those other sources of revenue, right? Because I was working primarily on the book. Again, finances, it could be anything. You could have looked into investments. You could have looked into, we talked about real estate this week. We talked about, what else did we talk about? A business, right? So you want that cash flow from a business. You want investments like real estate or stock market, right? So ultimately, that's what it is with the summary this week. Let's see, moving into Sunday premiere. So Sunday, I'm going to have a premiere of essentially the summary of everything that we've done over the 4 weeks. Where we're going with the lives. I know I had briefly touched upon where we're going to go with the lives, which I'm thinking I'm actually moving the live to Thursday is what I'm ultimately doing. And on Thursday, what I'll do is I'll go live, and I think I'm actually going to be calling it Winning the 10%. And then go over some different things I've come across to give you some more insight on why the 10% matters, how to capitalize on the 10%, right? And And that's ultimately what I'm going to do for Thursday. I think for the other live, I've actually been thinking about, because I do have a lot of people essentially that are going through divorce on my channel that subscribe to this channel. So I'm debating on whether or not doing a Tuesday live that primarily focuses on divorce. So if that is something you guys are interested in, I would start doing one on Tuesday as well. The Thursday definitely will be 10%. I don't know if it's going to be, I think it's going to be mostly every Thursday is what I'm aiming for. I want to have the consistency, so I'll be shooting for every Thursday. And unless that changes, Thursday and Tuesday are actually more open for me. That's why I'm aiming for the Tuesday, Thursday, as opposed to Friday and Monday. But the reason I did that through the Underdog experiment was ultimately to try to do it in a way that, you know, I could set up goals on Monday for you guys and then give a recap on Friday. So I kind of gave you 5 days on challenging yourself to change and take advantage of that 10%. So look for that on Sunday. We'll have a premiere on that. Again, going over this, again, where we're going with the lives. I'll try to be more specific on details for that in that video. So look for that on Sunday. There will be another premiere this Sunday summarizing this whole Underdog experiment. And then as far as upcoming things, I do have an interview coming up called Discover Possibilities with my friend. We're going to talk about health, and we're going to talk about business, and just the mindset and going after those things, right? Again, trying to give you exposure onto different avenues, right? And taking advantage, again, of these, tapping into that frequency bias, right? And seeing things that you may not be seeing and realizing there's opportunity there that you may have not caught before. And so, again, I'll be doing that interview, so that'll be out sometime next week. And then ultimately, I will be continuing with the Rebuild series. I haven't done a video this week. I don't know if I'll do one next week. It'll probably be the week after that, but I'd like to continue with that series as well. That series is essentially following from a divorce perspective, rebuilding. It doesn't have to, watching that video series doesn't have to be on divorce. It can be a major life event, right? And then building off of that, how do you essentially create the life that you want from essentially hitting ground zero, right? And so that's essentially what that series is. So I'll be continuing with that series. As far as everything else, I think that's pretty much it. That is week 4. We're under 40 minutes. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed doing this Underdog experiment. There's something, again, I want to continue doing. Winning the 10% every Thursday, I think, is where we're going so far. Again, I will finalize all that stuff on Sunday on the premiere. Again, recap everything that's gone on over the past week, what I've learned, and all that information. Again, if you want to look at my goals this whole 4 weeks, you can go into the Monday session, the Monday live session. I have, again, captured everything in that Monday live session over the past 4 weeks. So that is updated before I actually got on here to the stream. So everything is updated on there. Again, if there's any relevant books you want for finance, down in the description below. And I think that's pretty much it. It's been a blast. Again, look for the premiere. We'll do a whole summary on the Underdog experiments, where we're going, the book, all the information, all that jazz. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. I did have a couple of viewers on here. It doesn't look like there's any viewers on here anymore. So I would say if you had questions, throw them in there. I know this is delayed a little bit. There may be people that come on. It's hard to tell sometimes because there's people on, but there's not because it's delayed. Nonetheless, it's been fun. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you guys had a fantastic week. I hope you guys learned something. Go into this weekend. Keep it going. Keep that personal development going. And until Sunday, guys, have a good one. Peace.